How much of a hit have the media taken from Donald Trump's election? I put that question to the host of the new Fox show, Tucker Carlson, tonight, here in Studio One. Tucker Carlson, welcome.
Tuckers!
After a campaign in which the media repeatedly told us Donald Trump couldn't win the nomination, he clearly wasn't going to win the general election, what is the state of media credibility today?
Well, it's very low, and not just the media, but the paramedia, you know, all the experts who go on television to tell you.
The experts, the talking heads, the bloviators?
The pundits, the consultants, all the people who miscalled this election from day one really ought to be ashamed of themselves, because the truth is a lot of what they told us was social science, numbers-based analysis, was just advocacy. They were lying, they had strong preferences, and they allowed those preferences to color their interpretation of what was going to happen. I mean, look, that's a human thing, that's a natural thing, but they're not admitting it, which is infuriating.
What about the New York Times? Donald Trump went to the newsroom on West 43rd Street for an interview. What do you think the Times... what's its standing as a top American newspaper that got this election so wrong and has been pretty negative toward Trump?
Very negative. And look, whenever you, and I've said this, and I'm openly ideological, my views are out there, but I've supervised a lot of reporters, like, 80 of them. I always said, if you hate someone, if you really despise someone and consider him beyond the pale, you're not allowed to cover him, because you can't see him clearly. No matter how terrible a person is, it's possible to be unfair to that person. It's possible to lie about that person, and lying is always wrong. They kind of forgot that, and they decided there's nothing you could say about Trump that was out of bounds. I mean, they wrote a lot of accurate things about Trump that were unflattering, but they also wrote things that were disproportionate, that were untrue, and they devalued their own credibility in the process. And it makes me sad as a lifetime daily reader of the New York Times to see what they did to themselves.
Now, as you say, you've never made any bones about being conservative. There must be things in which you disagree with Donald Trump because he didn't run as a standard litmus test for a blue conservative. He also beat, in this election, the conservative press, particularly the National Review and the Weekly Standard, and some of the commentators on Fox. He denounced them by name, and he won. So where does that leave the conservative side of the media?
Well, I mean, he just undid and destroyed for all time two of the great American political dynasties, the Clintons and the Bushes. They're over, thanks to Donald Trump. I think he's discredited or allowed the liberal press to discredit itself, and I think he also overturned a lot of the conservative establishment here in Washington, and not just the publications, but also the think tanks, which are a huge part of our culture here, of conservative culture and D.C. culture, and he basically made them irrelevant or forced their irrelevancies to become public in a way they hadn't been before. I don't know what the future looks like. Right. I will say this, and we're talking about this in a commercial break, and this does bother me. If you're worried about the rise of irresponsible media, fringe media, the press, the New York Times, the Washington Post, NBC News, CNN, have all but guaranteed their rise by their own, I think, completely irresponsible coverage of this election. We need some unifying force in the press, I would say, some outlet that all of us acknowledge is kind of accurate, kind of trying hard to be fair. And there are fewer and fewer of those. And so what are you going to get in their place? You're going to get openly partisan, sometimes inaccurate news organizations that don't really serve anybody's interest.
In that New York Times interview, I mean, Donald Trump either softened or abandoned some of his positions in the campaign. No special prosecutor Hillary Clinton, open minds on climate change. Now he's against waterboarding, which he had favored in the war on terror. Now, the mainstream media, I think, kind of like this evolving Trump, but Trump in the conservative media, even Breitbart had a headline, Broken Promise, are they entitled to feel that he said certain things in the campaign and now he's walking away?
Well, of course they're entitled to feel that way. I mean, part of what this shows is just how dumb the coverage was. So the idea was, because Donald Trump is intemperate in his rhetoric, which obviously he is, that he's some kind of wild-eyed right-winger. He's not particularly conservative in economics. He's not particularly conservative on social issues, and he's definitely not conservative on the foreign policy questions. And so in what sense is he a conventional right-winger? In no sense. So I guess it's a little bit confusing to the average person at home, like, really? This is not the Donald Trump the media portrayed. I mean, for good or bad. I mean, leaving aside my views on it, it's just true. He's not a conventional conservative.
He's not a rigidly ideological candidate, which I said
at all. Exactly.
What is the goal for your new show? How are you trying to give it a distinct identity now that you're on 7 Eastern weeknights?
Well, I'm not a big think guy. I'm a very small think guy. So I haven't actually thought about...
Well, give us a small thought, Tucker.
No, I mean, my gut reaction is that viewers want to see people on television who are directly involved in the stories of the day. there are an awful lot of people, and I've been one of those people, by the way, commenting on things they don't have direct contact with, and there's a lot of that, and that market is saturated.
What do you think of these latest developments in the Middle East?
Exactly,
that kind of thing, right?
exactly. Right. I was in Israel last year. I'm an expert. No, you're not. So, I don't know. I think it would be nice to have more people on who are directly related to this. You're reading a piece in the paper, you're like, I can't believe they're doing that. I would like to have that guy on. And so we're trying to do that.
In taking on this expanded role at Fox, you are having to now give up your management role at the Daily Caller, the conservative website that you founded. Was that a hard decision for you? Is it hard to let that go?
Yeah, it was really hard. I mean, not because I'm a great manager. I'm a terrible manager. I'm a big picture guy.
You can say that now.
I know. I always said it. They knew it. But I loved it, and I love the guys. I like print people. I like TV people, too.
Yeah.
But there's a kind of rawness about print people. They're just right out there with what they think, and they're just wonderful people. And so, yeah, I miss them. I still preside over the Christmas party. That is not in any sense managing the day-to-day operations of the business, but I'm still a Christmas party guy.
I'm glad you held on to a lucrative piece of the franchise. Tucker Carlson, great to see you.
Thanks, Howie.
Thanks very much for joining us.